Let's go.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to All Cards Considered.
All Cards Considered.
Oh my God, he just blew the mic out. The energy is good. That's what this show's all about.
All Cards Considered.
You know what? Very thematic. It sounds like you're deep in a cave.
Yes. And we're going to be talking deeply about caves.
We're going to be talking so deeply about caves. I'm Jesse Pretend.
I'm Dylan Cassidy, and let's rank some caves.
Let's rank some caves. It's Ixalan time.
First cave on my list, your mom's.
Whoa, dude. There's a lot of caves in this set, dude.
There are a lot of caves.
It's kind of stupid.
And, I mean, like, I guess the only thematic thing with caves is that you sacrifice them.
Yeah, sure. Classically,
Like,
that's what you do.
You just bury them in the graveyard.
Just crunch them for what's inside, I guess, is the theme. There's a lot going on in Ixalan.
Yeah.
Both literally, figuratively, metaphorically. But we're here to kind of break it down for you, share our thoughts. Dylan, you've done the two pre-release. You did two-headed giant.
Two-headed giant, which is a little bit different experience, but you still get to see some cards, and then I did my own pre-release.
I like it because you think a little differently about the cards. Sometimes it like opens up the set a bit. It's also nothing like real draft, of course, because it's so slow.
It is very slow.
But yeah, did you have fun?
I did have fun. I think that the set could be good. I am excited to tool around with it in Arena a little bit. We'll see. I'm really like pretty narrow. I think it's got more attention span for me than Lord of the Rings did, which I loved flavor wise and as an admirer of the product, but it like the gameplay was not super deep.
Yeah, and you had, I think both of us had a pretty similar take on Eldraine. It was just like,
that's good.
It's okay, but we got bored.
Yeah.
And this so far to me is way more complicated.
Yes.
Like all of the mechanics take some discerning. Some of that is bad design, like the descent, descending, fathomless descent. That's a terrible design. I don't know what's going on with that, and it really did make it harder to take in or understand necessarily like what exactly a card was doing, and that contributed to probably some of the slowest pre-release games I've ever had, and probably one of my least fun pre-release runs. I was playing dinos. I was attacking hard. Every turn for me was slam something down, attack you with everything. What you got, bud? Yeah. And I had 0-1-2, 2 draws and 1 loss against like descent decks and cast discover decks and stuff that was just like durdle.
Drawing on turns every time because you couldn't kill them.
Yeah, exactly. We would play one of those games. Most of the time it was like one game where one of us would get there and then the other one would drag out the second game and barely get there, and then we would be like, oh look, there's no time for even a third game. But that's okay. That does happen at pre-release. Part of it is that the cards are complicated. A lot of the cards are double-sided.
There's so much text, which has been a theme each set. They just keep slapping more text on these cards.
Yeah, but even if that made for maybe a subpar pre-release in some ways, I think this has the makings to be a really fun set.
Yeah, I keep thinking about what my when I revisit it mentally, I feel like there is a lot of things that you can do in deck construction and in your like setup draft wise that will pay off dividends in like turn 4 and 5.
Yes,
this is like kind of a setup set. I feel like
definitely,
if that makes any sort of sense.
So every single archetype plays with the graveyard, right? This is like the play from the graveyard, the format. And I don't mind that at all. I'll say that like classically Reanimator mill strategies are not things that I've been drawn to. I do like Rakdos. What's played out really nicely so far is that I think every mechanic actually plays really well.
Yeah.
Right? Like Explore is great. You get to draw a free card or you get a counter.
We love Explore. We're glad to have it back.
It's also fun when like your opponent gets some value, but you get to see what they're about to draw. And so it kind of adds an extra layer of strategy to the game. It's all just making things like Fog of War or removing Fog of War. Yeah. So I love that. Craft is so good.
Craft is interesting. It's one of those. It reminds me a little bit of the Fire Exchange Transform.
Yeah.
Where there's like real opportunities for blowouts, especially where it's like sacrifice a creature to craft this thing, and then you counter it or cancel it or something.
It's kicker, but you pay it later.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really good. You just have a bunch of like dinky dunky artifacts that give you value, and you get to play them out, and then they turn into your strongest cards in the late game as long as you're able to survive. And so you're still playing kind of a blue-white tempo game or a red-white aggressive sort of mid-range game. And then late game, instead of like slamming down 5 drops, you just get to like turn your other stuff into stuff. And I think that plays really fun. It's very synergistic. And so, yeah, I mean, we can go through all of them, but the point is I think all of them play quite well and can be quite strong. And you can start out in one color pair and then slide into another. Where I think this is really going to shine is in the drafts. I've done a couple of drafts on Arena, and they play very differently than Sealed.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I have yet to do a draft, but I do think coming out of Sealed, and I think this was maybe a Sealed sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of big, attractive dinosaurs in the set, so I encountered a lot of people playing Gruul. Gruul was like the deck to beat at every single pre-release. My experience.
100%.
And in Two-Headed Giant, one player was playing Gruul in
every game.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I actually did the very first pre-release like Friday night, and my first 2 games were against Gruul opponents.
And I did Gruul in one of my games too.
Sure. And the first person I faced had the Palani Hatcher, which puts out 12 total power over the course of 2 turns. It's disgusting. They had 2 of them. So my first impression was like, whoa, dinos are insane.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really strong dinos, like the 2-drop that it's a 3/2 with trample for 2. That's just good no matter what deck it's going in.
The Gruul one that like fights whenever.
Oh man, yeah, probably the best
little 2-drop.
Yeah, easily the best dino. I think the one that I'm like looking for in uncommon or below the most. And so my impression was, yeah, this is definitely like really powerful. I don't actually think it is. I think it's pretty middle, but I think that at pre-release, if you opened 6 to 12 dinos, you didn't have to think anymore, right? The other cards are super complicated. Why would you not just build an aggressive beatdown dino deck? And so, yeah, the first 2 games were dinos. And then my third opponent I was playing blue-white artifact craft stuff, and they were 2. And I was like, oh, God, please don't be dinos. And they're like, no, I'm doing it. And so we had a mirror match, and we're very, very happy to have a different pace of game. I think I ended up going like 2-1 in that. Ended up beating the mirror match and beat the dinos, and then lost to the double Palani Hatcher guy. And then from there, things kind of opened up. Like I actually went 3-0 with a red-black Descent deck. Yeah. Which just took advantage of everything, the like evolving wilds that dump something into the yard. The mountain cyclers was another way to trigger Descent.
Yep.
Roaming Throne is a very cool card. I don't know if you've seen him.
I got one of those in one of my prize packs. He's like type
the 4/4. Yeah, he becomes something else, and then he doubles the triggers. So like he works really well with dinos, but he also works really well with pirates and gnomes.
He plays well with others.
He just plays well. So
let's see. Yeah, let me recap. I did Gruul Dinos on my individual pre-release, and that was pretty good. I thought I had a good deck because I opened the Hatcher that we talked about. I opened the guy that you can discard and deal 3 damage, or he's like a 7/6 trample. I had 2 of the turtles that are like...
Oh, the giant one with the big butts?
The 0/6.
Butt turtle, yeah.
Yeah, the big butt turtle. But they're not dinosaurs, notably. Which is sad.
So you're kind of like, ooh, do I want to put that in? Yeah.
I mean, obviously if you're playing Gruul, you're gonna play those guys even though they're not dinosaurs. And then I thought I had a pretty good deck, and then I played like a guy that was playing Gruul, and I beat him, and then I played somebody that was not playing Gruul, and I won the first 2, or like we ended up being a draw, and then my last game I played someone else playing Gruul that just had like all of my commons and rares and then more. So I mean he ate my lunch.
There are bombs too.
Yeah, like there's a lot of bombs.
I'm still trying to decide is this like a bomby set or not. So far it hasn't been overwhelming because it's still fairly assertive in draft, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different ways to win. true first impressions. There's tons of good 1-drops. Like every color has a 1-drop that is quite impressive. I really like the blue flyer 1/1 that makes a map. And lets you explore right away. There's like a white one, flyer that has lifelink.
Uncommon. Yes, that won me a game on its own.
I had someone spend 4 mana on a real removal spell to kill that thing because it was just going to win the whole
5
game.
counters on it in a game.
Oh my god! Yeah,
and
there's lots of counters going around. Yeah. There's lots of ways to make your creatures stronger without losing value. They've really taken that as a design lesson. But as an example, there's like Atali's Favor, which is an aura that gives +1/+1 and then discover 3. So you're like kind of up mana depending on what you hit, and you want to spin the wheel, go for it. I do like that there's a lot of that, like whether it's milling or discovering, just being like, let's see what we get. Let's live recklessly. Let's go crazy.
There is a gambling part of this game that I really or format with all of the discover stuff.
And it plays well because it's not all gas all the time. There are a lot of more controlling formats. It's not classical like turn 12 control, but it's like I'm going to make good trades. I'm going to trade mana and cards against you, and I'm going to kind of, like you said, turn 4, turn 5, I'm going to turn something that wasn't a thing into a 4. Oh my god, Zoetic Glyph, the blue enchantment that turns an artifact into a 5/4. Then when it leaves the battlefield, you discover 3. So basically, did 2 cards out of... We get like 3 cards out of 1 card. So there's just a lot of interesting stuff going on, and there's a really good tension. I've played a couple of like red-white decks that are happy to be assertive, but then, I'm playing another aggressive deck. Well, I'm just going to pull back a little bit, play out my Sunshot Militias and my...
Those are the tap guys?
Growy artifact guys that get counters from tapping things, and just kind of like pull back. Okay, you don't have an attack.
Red kind of has this like reachy tappy synergy, which is kind of fun with the volatile...
Yeah, the Wind Glyph.
Yeah, he's good.
There's lots of good cards. I built a couple of decks where I had like 4 1-drops and only 1 or 2 2-drops. That's never happened before.
Yes.
But the 1-drops were better or as good as the 2-drops. So I really like that.
Yeah, there's bombs though. There's bombs because I'm thinking there's the whole cycle of gods. We had in my 2-headed giant
really strong.
The black god, the deepest whatever, who is really busted into it a giant because it's each opponent discards, and then for each discarded card,
the black one's so good.
Yeah, and every game we played him was just it was unfair. He was really a terror.
Yeah, one complaint. First, I got the blue god. He's sweet.
He's rebound.
There wasn't a ton of rebound, but I had the 1 mana instant that turns an artifact into a 4/3.
Great.
So I got 8 points of damage out of a map. Pretty sweet. And he's just a 4/3 flyer that keeps coming back over and over and over and over again, even if you have to wait a little bit. Like, he gives you inevitability, so he's very, very strong. My complaint is, like, why do they do the red god?
He's the triple?
This way every time. Yeah. He's triple damage from non-combat damage. He's going to be actually awesome with the Sunshot Militia.
Yeah.
But my main problem is with the flipping. The green and the black ones essentially just come back for free.
Yeah.
The black one, all you need is 1 player to have 1 or less card in hand. It's not hard to do.
That's going to happen turn 5.
The green one is just like have like 8 power on the board or something stupid. It's just, you get it. Someone played against me. I killed it and they flipped it that same turn. Not even like the next turn. So
it
4
should
or
come
more
in tap,
damage.
so they shouldn't be able to do that.
It was on Arena.
Oh.
How did they do that?
I don't know, because when it comes back as a land, it's tapped.
It is tapped. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was the next turn.
But I also think there's maybe stuff that's like lands enter untapped. Yeah. Anyway.
I'm going to cut that part.
Yeah. No.
That's staying in. Let's be honest. Honest possums? Is that what people say? I don't know.
Honest possums? I've never heard that before.
No?
Let us know in the comments if you've heard of honest possums before.
So they did the red god terrible. I still like him, but it's weird. It's like some of them are so wildly better than others during cycles, and it seems like red is always one that makes you jump through an absurd number of hoops to the point where it's just not going to flip again.
Yeah, red's thing lately has just been like do extra damage, and white's has been token doublers.
Yes, there's a token tripler in this one.
Well, we brought it up a tier.
Bro, are you ready for quadruple? They're gonna just do it. The removal, while fairly abundant, is pretty subpar. That's why I kind of feel like there's lots of good bombs, and the removal isn't quite up to the task of killing all of them. So I'm just not sure exactly like how that'll end up playing out ultimately. There's lots of cool stuff too, like Well of Lost Dreams it's a rare, but it's a 3-mana artifact. It's like basically divination. Mm-hmm. You draw 2, discard 1, or draw 3, discard 1.
Yeah. When
it enters the battlefield, and then it can flip into a land. And then any mana spent to cast a creature, you can turn a non-creature artifact into a copy of that creature. So if you have a map token or a treasure token or something like that, you spend mana with this land to cast your god. Mm-hmm. You get to make one of your treasures into a copy of that god.
Whoa.
That's a bad example because it's legendary rule. But you see what I'm saying? Like you get to turn your dinky dunky artifacts into copies of all your creatures. They swing in and then they go back to being whatever they were for a turn. That cool. One was really, really fun.
Do you think you're ever going to try to win a game with the Millennium Clock?
Oh, yes. I know someone who has.
Already?
Alec.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Alec from the dojo got there.
In a pre-release game?
In a pre-release game.
You have to do it 10 times?
It's variable, but there's something that I misread about the card. So it's whenever a permanent untaps.
Uh-huh.
So your lands count.
Okay.
You get to put a counter on it for that, and then it doubles
your
them.
Too, or just your stuff?
Just yours.
Okay.
Yeah. So every turn you tap all your lands, tap as many of your creatures as you can from attacks or whatever. When you untap, you put that many counters on it. Mm-hmm. Then it doubles those counters if you pay the mana and tap it.
Yes.
And I think he had some sort of shenanigan that allowed him to untap it once or twice later in the late game.
Okay.
But he said it actually was really fast. Like at first it was really slow. It was like 4, 8, 16, and then 125, 256, like 538, like it's tripling, like or doubling really fast. And so I actually think it's a legitimate win condition, and I love that shit. Like it's been a minute since we've kind of I've already had some games like that are just like, oh shit, where was that coming from? There's a 8 mana flyer that returns everything from both players' graveyards. It kills everything on the battlefield, then it returns everything from the graveyards except for the stuff that just went there.
Yeah.
So
that's fun.
I brought back all my cyclers. Like it was so great.
I like the ball they added.
Do you?
I think it's bad, but someone played it against me and then gave it to me right away. Or I attacked them right away. It's bad, and I loved seeing it on the other side, and then I just took it and drew with it right away.
Alex said the exact same thing. He was like, yeah, my opponent... He was like, I love this card. And I was like, you put that in your deck? And he was like, no, my opponent did. And then I hit them with it, and I kept it for the rest of the game. So yeah, I do love that card too.
Yeah.
I guess I could give you a little bit of advice based on my first couple drafts. I managed a trophy with a black-white deck.
Okay.
That was like right in that grindy kind of sacrifice value. In fact, basically what the deck was all based around was like make as many pieces of stuff as I humanly possibly can.
As many permanents on the battlefield as possible.
Absolutely. Whether they're creatures or not, I don't actually care. And then I had 2 copies of Bartolome, whatever, the Spanish guy who sacrifices creatures uncapped. Whenever he sacrifices a creature or artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on him. And he's a 2/1 for 2. Mm-hmm. So he's the signpost. But you can just attack him with him as a 2/1 and threaten to sack your entire board and make him an 8/8 at instant speed. It's like he's quite threatening.
Yeah.
And he plays so nicely because multiple times my opponents like would use a removal spell on him, and I'd be like, okay, sack 3 artifacts. And he outlives you. I'm swinging next turn. And then it had like a couple of other, grindy cards that were on that level, a good suite of removal. But the cards that were really standing out to me, there's like a 2/1 artifact that makes a map for 3.
Yeah,
it's just 2 bodies for 2. Tinker's Tote.
Tinker's Tote was fun for me.
It's getting to the point where I'm having trouble finding it in drafts already. Yeah. Like I think the word is out.
You get 3 permanents on the battlefield.
You get 3 artifacts too. Yeah. They're all artifacts if you need artifacts. And
I really want to do an Artifacts Matter deck, but I haven't yet.
In fact, this isn't even my assessment. I've heard others say it. a great place to start is just artifacts. Because whatever color you're in, red, blue, and white probably care about artifacts the most.
Yeah.
But all three of them pair with each other extremely well.
Yeah.
You can do 3. Like, I've had a couple of blue-white decks where I splash the Sunshot Militia just so I can tap a couple artifacts every turn. Equipment plays quite nicely. There's a lot of equipment, and some of it's, like, pretty good, especially with those flying 1-drops.
Deconstruction Hammer?
Oh, man, that thing really plays. Yeah,
it's pretty
because you get to blow up their, like, 7-mana creature late game sometimes. And it's one of the few cards that hits an enchantment. There's very few enchantment removal, and there's a couple of strong enchantments, so something to be aware of.
I didn't actually see that many enchantments besides, like, the Pacifism, Petrify, in my games at least. Not saying that there aren't out there, but...
There's a few. The one that's, like, been pretty solid for me, it's not amazing. It's definitely for the right deck, but there's one that's, like, 4 mana, and then whenever a creature attacks alone, it gets Death Touch and Lifelink. And then you put a counter on it. Once you have 3 counters, it flips into a land that lets you tap it and pay 1 mana to lose a life and draw a card. So every turn you just lose a life, draw a card. And that actually gives you some like grind that I think those black decks want. That's probably kind of where I'm at with the colors too, is like red, blue, and white are somewhere in tier 1 fighting for first place right now.
Interesting.
And then I think black and green are a little bit lower. Personally, green is my number 5. I haven't really played green at all.
I've only played green so far. I played green, red, and then green, white.
Okay, awesome, cool.
And it is very assertive, and I think in the lanes that I've been in, or I mean, I've only done sealed also, so it was like, this is where my pool was directing me, was I had a lot of green cards and a lot of white cards.
Sure.
So I ended up playing that, but it doesn't feel bad. And I mean, the problem I feel like with green, which is like a forever problem, is you don't have a lot of answers. You like have to be playing threats that they have to answer in any sort of green deck, especially green red. You want to be the one making them answer your beatdown. So it's hard when you run out of gas.
Running out of gas has been a little bit of a problem. There isn't tons and tons and tons of card draw. It's part of why I really, really like blue, because there's stuff like the Iceberg, which has been playing better than expected for me. 2 mana, draw a card, mill a card, then you have a leftover artifact, and then late game for 6, you craft it into a 6/6. If you
it's
need
a vehicle,
it.
Right?
No, it's just like a straight up 6/6 creature.
Okay.
And when it attacks, it taps another artifact or creature. So there have been a couple of times where they're like, okay, you go for it. I craft into my Iceberg Giant or whatever, and then they craft into their Iceberg Giant, and then I attack and tap their Iceberg Giant. And it's like, yes! You didn't think of that. So, that card's played a lot better than expected. And, being carded out is a little bit of a problem. The one card I do want to shout out, and I think the word is out about it, but, like, Sunshot Militia has been not just two-headed giant good, but really, 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 really good.
There's just so many artifacts.
There's a lot of artifacts. A lot of times the way it plays in the early game is like it's a 1/3, and you probably don't want to attack with it just because you want to get your value out of it. So it kind of sits back and prevents them from swinging. But if you have a couple, like, you can swing with your 1 attack or your flyer or whatever, and then you probably have like a treasure token and an equipment attached to that flyer, and you can tap those to deal like an additional damage. And then it starts pinging for 2, 3, 4 if the board stalls or you run out of stuff. Sometimes you just win in a burst where it comes down and you just deal 4 damage to them. I had a game that I was playing earlier today before we started recording where it was a mirror match, and that's exactly what was happening. And my deck was like fluctuating so beautifully between aggro and control, where they came out really aggressively, but then I had the pickaxe that got me a treasure, and so I swung out in an advantaged moment and then suddenly became the aggressive deck, and then just stopped, played the militia, and pinged him to death. And it felt so safe. Like, I thought about the math, and I was like, I don't have to attack. You're at 5, I'll deal 2 this turn, I'll deal 2 next turn, and, let's see if you can kill this thing. So the games are really interesting. I basically, once the complexity glazes over you a little bit,
it's so
there's a lot going on.
That he does not require you to tap him to get his effect. That it's like, you just have any
You just go.
Yeah.
And the big restriction, of course, is its sorcery speed. So a lot of people panned him in their set reviews, saying like, this is too aggro, you're going to leave yourself open, you can't leave up blockers and do it on your opponent's turn. But it really doesn't matter. Both him and Armguard, or the white 4-drop that's a 3/3 that grows if you tap 2. Both of those have been better than anticipated.
Yeah.
And the way that I've seen a lot of people playing them is they slam it down and they just tap everything that turn and just take one turn off. And they say, okay, go ahead and hit me. Now my creature's probably either brawling with you, or next turn I can tap 2 things, not everything, and have it be like bigger than your thing. And we're just kind of in a good spot. And so, yeah, it's just played interestingly. Like,
yeah, but what are you going to do when you do that for 2 turns and then they remove it?
That has also happened.
And then you're dead.
I had a situation where, my opponent... this is just another piece of advice. A lot of the removal requires you to either be tapped or attacking. So think very carefully about how much damage they can deal. I had a Cosmium Blast, which deals 4 damage to my opponent, and only 2 mana up, which should be such a tell, even early in this set. Just, you should be thinking, like, what can you do with 2 mana? And one of those things is deal 4, and he had a 4/4 Armguard, and he attacked with everything instead of tapping a couple of things to make it a 5/5, and if he did, I wouldn't have been able to deal with it. So it's just little moments like that where you can go all in a way that Eldraine disincentivized by putting all of your tokens on one creature or all of your enchantments on one creature. And so, you could get blown out really, really badly.
Yeah.
But the advice that I would generally say based on this is like, fill the board up. You'll find things to do with your stuff. There's the 3 mana flash artifact that deals 2. It's better than it seems. It really is better than it seems. The backside of it isn't that good.
I like the shock equipment.
Oh, love that thing. The Sunfire Torch or whatever. Yeah, that thing is very, very good.
I was having a good time with that.
Another one, don't listen to LSV's ratings if you have whatever the app is that gives you little ratings when you're on Arena. I'm a cheater. No. Clay fried bricks, as I call it in my mind all the time. It's like 2-drop, find you a plains, and then 8 mana craft into an enchantment that gives all your creatures +1/+1. And it gives you 2 little 1/1 gnomes.
That seems good.
It finds you a land for 2 mana. It gives you an artifact to do stuff with. If you can get to 8, it basically wins you the game. It just makes all of your stuff a little bit bigger than everybody else's. And so I've taken that card very early and been like, give me all the Tinker's Totes,
It's going long. The games are going along. I don't know what the data says, but it feels like they are at least.
I wait till you've had a chance to start drafting the set, because we were recording this like right after the set came out. Once you've drafted, I think you'll find that while some games can go long and some games will go long, everybody's doing stuff. Like there's good 1-drops. Like the games don't go forever, and some of the games are actually over in a flash. You kind of play out your strategy and go. So draft for me has been, I wouldn't call it aggressive and I wouldn't call it fast, but not the grind fest that it kind of felt like Sealed was, where it's like in Sealed, there were a couple turns where we'd be like, okay, pass, I cracked my cave, you crack your cave, nothing, pass. This doesn't feel like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's not nearly enough removal to be dealing with everything. Like you're going to end up, another really good one, the Old Tech Cloud Guard, white 4 mana 3/2 that makes a 1/1 creature. It's just another card that like makes 2 bodies, and a 3/2 flyer is,
we always love that.
Nothing to laugh at.
What are the board clears in the set? There's the one that's the Caves board clear.
There's a couple. Yeah, there's a black one that removes everything equal to, it does -X to everything
where
equal
it's
to like your descent. So there's the Descent Wrath. There's the white glyph one. It's an artifact, and it's like for each creature they get choose a creature with mana value 2 or less, and then kill everything else.
Okay.
And then it flips. It crafts into actually a really good flyer that says like, I think it's like your opponent can either attack or play spells, but not both.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's like a nice.
That's got to be rare mythic. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, I think all the board wipes are.
Okay. Oh, the Caves one is maybe an uncommon.
The Caves one I think is an uncommon. I think the Caves deck's bad.
I gotta try at least once to build a 5-color Caves dumb bad deck.
I didn't actually like go for it, but I realize now one of my arena drafts I was supposed to be the Cave deck. I was getting every single like rare caves and cool ones. I got the one that lets your caves tap for any color and turns a cave into like a 3/3 and a bunch of others. Like, I think you could kind of get there. I even saw the bat colony and didn't take it.
Oh, what's that one?
It's a white enchantment that makes a bat for each mana spent from a cave to cast it. And then, yeah. Problem is it's 3, and like, I found it kind of hard to have a lot of caves early in the game, you know?
Because they're all monocolored or gray.
And it's like, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to get like 6 or 5 of the colored caves.
Yeah.
If you're going to get to that high, you're probably including Promising Vein, the Evolving Wilds cave.
I had 6 Selesnya caves in my sealed pool.
That's pretty good. It's definitely not snow, but I'm curious to see like what you even really get from doing it. Like, what are the nice payoffs? There's the Cave Leech Worm or whatever that's like 8 mana and it gets cheaper for every cave, and it's like a 5/5 with lifelink.
Sorry, yeah, I
haven't seen really anything that makes me be like, cool, I really, really want cave.
Okay,
the board wipe.
The board wipe is the one, like,
that's a payoff.
Thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool build arounds like that in this set where it's like, I'm gonna be the like XY deck. Like, for instance, artifacts aren't a theme in the set. I mean, they are, because there's lots of cards that play off them, but it's not like a color pair mechanic.
It's a ubiquitous thing, kind of like Graveyard.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that stuff. The one that's been hardest to make work for me has just been the descending mechanic, where we have like the number of cards.
I think that I'm interested in it, and I think it can definitely be good. Like, once you turn some of those online, they become blowouts. But you got to get there. They require work.
Well, these are our early thoughts.
Yeah.
After playing in some caves for a while. Did you want to just very briefly talk about the finale of our
let's do that
little draft league? So how did it go for you? Just to remind everybody, we did a series of drafts where you get to like carry over your pool and build from a growing pool from week to week. And it ended in a final Commander Masters draft where you have to pare down into a final Commander deck, use color identity, choose your commander, all of that exciting stuff. Where did you end up?
I ended up with Tatiova.
Okay.
Which...
very strong commander.
It was, and I had a very strong deck, and I became the bad guy very quickly. And, you know, I just have this problem when I'm playing green decks, and blue also is a little bit weak on this. Simic is like the worst when it comes to hard removal. I just did not really have a lot, and I could not answer the Krinko, the one that like taps, makes goblins equal to your goblins.
Was he commander or just like a card on the
commander?
Table? Oh, interesting.
That was his commander.
Was that Matt going mono red?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He also had Anax, and then I got down a bunch of like big boys with Boseiju reaches skyward, so I had a bunch of like power toughness equal lands, so I had like some 9/9s on the battlefield, like 3 or 4 of them, and I was swinging in, and then they just blew up all my big guys.
Yeah.
I hate when they do that. I love my big guys, terrible. And I keep blowing them up. But it was fun. I had a great time. It was a really different experience thinking about decks, and really brought me back to that, like, these are the weird little cards that I have, and I want to build a deck with them.
Yeah. People did some interesting stuff with building. Like, Matt decided to go mono red. Instead of being like, oh, I have this giant pool of many colors to pull from, he was like, no, I'm going to go consistent and aggressive. And I played against him, I think, like week 2.
Yeah.
And his deck was already really good. So that's like cool that he committed to it. Someone had Obosh as a companion.
Yep. Yep.
Terran, who his deck was actually really good.
He got there with it with me. He beat me.
He was in my pod for the final game. We were a 3-person pod. It was him, me, and Michelle. Michelle opened the Japanese doubling season in week 1 that we mentioned, and I just assumed that she was going to build around that.
Yeah,
but she had the discipline to leave that in the sideboard and build a red-white aggressive equipment deck, full of super good cards. She had like Talia, she had a bunch of super solid equipment, and she wasn't the big bad because she was just attacking the 2 of us and putting us both on the back foot and essentially winning the game right from the beginning. I ended up sticking with Raph. I talked a little bit about the deck last week. Blue-white. I had a Hinata. I thought about going 3-color, and I was like, you know what? The Commander Masters draft itself, I got the a spell that you can play if you have a command. You can play for free if you have a commander. You know, there's that cycle in there.
Deflecting, whatever.
It's like deflecting SWAT or something. It's like your creatures like can't take damage or something like that, and you get to cast it for free.
I got the black one.
Okay. I had that, and then I had another card that basically is like deflecting palm, where if creatures attack you, you can flash it in and then redirect the targets and like change who they're actually attacking. So I was kind of sitting there and waiting to like blow out Terran or use Michelle as my sword, sort of. Never quite ended up actually needing it, because I actually ended up getting there just tempo wise. I had a lot of removal. It was a really good game, but barely managed to scrape it out. So huge success for me. The whole experience was very fun.
I loved it. Had a great time. Looking forward to doing it again. Speaking of, what are our thoughts? What are we going to do differently? My proposal, two-headed giant.
Oh man, teams.
I think two-headed giant. So the my thought with this and why it might be hard is
that's great.
It'd be hard to do two-headed giant with a shared pool and then have it change, right? So like maybe it would be a whole two-headed giant series.
You team up and it's team drafts every week.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's a progressive pool, we could even leave that.
Yeah.
You know, that could be determined. But
I think you got to
two-headed giant is like one of the. I think we have to keep that as like a fundamental. And people love two-headed giant. I hear people say all the time, "This is my favorite way to play Magic." So why shouldn't we give people more ways to play that? Way? Absolutely.
I think it'd be really fun to do a series of them.
Coming 2024.
Two-headed giant draft league.
Hell yeah!
Look for it.
Speaking of, get in the Discord if you are interested in finding out more about little events that we're doing, or want to show us your drafts from Ixalan,
or tell us how we're wrong.
I would love to see. Yeah, first of all, I would love to just hear more. Oh, very cute. People are starting to like be like, "Hey, do you have this card? I want to trade."
Yeah. So if you got any trading,
Ojar.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hook him up. But yeah, it's a nice little community. Going on in there. Otherwise, I think that's like most of it for this week, right?
Yes.
You're off to do a show.
I've got to go do improv comedy.
I'm probably gonna try and see if I can get another blue-white.
Yeah.
I love craft.
Send me the list. Post it in the Discord.
It's my favorite right now. I will. Yeah. I will. Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week with more.
Yeah. Thank you, and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Beautiful.